Hi, welcome to No Veil Recovery. I am Jazz and this is Adam. And in this episode today, we're going to talk a bit about treatment centers, being a counselor, addiction, recovery, and just a bit about like that line of helping people, what you can say and what you can't and how far you can go. And we're just going to start there and see where it goes.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Adam.
Jazz.
What brought, okay, first, how did we meet?
So before she was a famous YouTuber, Jazz was painting houses and she did a great job.
Thank you.
She painted my parents' house and then they recommended her to me to paint my house.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew her through that. I was sober at the time. I was working at a treatment center, and one day I walked into the treatment center and I saw Jazz, and I was like
at my door,
at her room door, and I thought, oh, she must be here to paint the center, but she wasn't. She was there to get some help, and take that step in her life to bring her to where she is today. So it was a very funny story, but that's kind of how things go in recovery. Mm-hmm. You run into people that you haven't seen in years, or, you see someone in a meeting that you had no idea, had the same troubles as you. And so, here we are.
Mm-hmm. So I was surprised and in shock. I opened my door and I know Adam. And so I felt so like freaked out and exposed because I'm like, oh my God, like now I can't hide what I am. And this, I recently painted his house like probably a few months ago. So it's just like, oh my God, like now he's going to know I'm raging alcoholic in rehab. My years of drinking and being in trades had caught up with me, and I was there to get some help. But Adam, you were so nice. You were like, it's all good. Like, you do you. You're here for you. I didn't feel like judged or anything. I just, first day of treatment is it's a freaky day because you're kind of exiting one life to possibly open the door to something different. Mm-hmm. It's a big step.
Yeah. And I think that for anyone that's new coming into treatment, there's that thought of, like you said, being exposed, oh my God, my secret's blown. This person's going to tell other people, but it's really the opposite, Mm-hmm. So if anyone out there is thinking of going to treatment or thinking of going to a meeting, just remember every single person in that room has been where you are now. And, it didn't take long, right, for you to realize like, oh, I'm in the right place. Like all these things that I thought I was doing that were crazy are actually all these people have done the same things,
Yeah. Right. It was really welcoming and safe to be in like that community, and all the things you think, what's everyone going to think? They're going to judge me. They're going to know. And you think that for a bit, but then that fades away, right? Because then the security comes in and you start to see that everybody's pretty loving and just, we all want the same thing. Everybody wanted me to get better. I wanted to get better. Yeah. So it was a beautiful experience to go to treatment. I know I tried on my own for so long and I just couldn't get it together. And so I was just like, I need to go to a place for some time to do nothing but not drink. Mm-hmm. That's what I needed.
Yeah. And I think that's maybe one of the things people think, going into treatment is like, okay, I'm going for 30 days, I'm going for 60 days, however long it is. And, I'm just not going to drink for that amount of time. And then I'm going to get out and, that's it. I'm fine. I'm done. Mm-hmm. But there's so much more to treatment than just not drinking, or not doing drugs. It's, you get in there and you actually, come out a better version of you were, when you weren't drinking and when you were young or whatever. So, mm-hmm. The disease of addiction is is pretty amazing in that you actually get to become a better version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like other diseases, people just want to get to a percentage of where they were, you know, if they're going through chemo or whatever, they're just trying to like, you know, survive. And we get a chance to actually, you know, thrive and really do some amazing things with our life and give back and talk to others about it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I didn't think there was any other better way than being the jazz version that drank.
Yeah.
And being 5 years down the pipe now, it's like, you couldn't pay me to go back. Like, I love the version that I'm becoming now.
Yeah.
Right. And you just can't be convinced of that at the beginning. It's almost like you got to go for a while and learn the program and do it for a while to start to really kind of believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
And like when I did leave the treatment center, like I had that same idea, like I'm just going there to try out. And they went along with it with me. They were okay, yeah. And so they introduced me to like AA and the 12 steps but when I did leave, I had a little glimmer of hope. Like everything wasn't fixed yet. Like I didn't have my life fixed very fast for a long time, but I wanted it fixed fast because of all my shame. But when I did leave, I had that glimmer of hope of like, well, this is a little better. You know what I mean? I could get a grip.
Well,
you know?
I think what happens is, you know, and this happened for you, it happened for me, is when you're in active addiction,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's drinking, doing drugs, whatever, you kind of like have a fear of staying where you're at, but you have a greater fear of being sober. Because it's like, what's my life going to look like? At least I know what it's like now, you know? So one of the things in treatment, you know, as a counselor is like, we try and teach people like, you know, the fear of the unknown has to be less than the fear of staying where you're at. But it takes time, you know, on day one.
Right. To minimize that fear of the unknown of what my sober life would be like.
Yeah.
Right. And they're so overwhelming.
And it's just about like, it's like, you know, changing the neural pathways in your brain to say like, you know what, actually the unknown is way better than staying where I'm at, you know? And, but it takes, it's all about, you know, it's like, exercise, you know, if you're lifting weights, you're going to get stronger. And if you're in, you know, treatment and, you know, learning about recovery, you know, it's a mental thing because that's where the disease lies, is in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, you gotta just like practice, you know, whether it's saying the same thing every day or, you know, just talking with other people about positive things. You got to change those pathways. And then once you do, it's like you kind of embrace the unknown, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I know I'm not going to drink.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And lots of, you know, tripping and making mistakes for a while in the beginning.
Yep.
You know, and like loving yourself through those moments of like, just keep going. Like, you know what I mean? It's almost like, it's like your mind thinks of everything as so catastrophic. And then to change those brainwaves, you're sort of like going like, it's okay. Yeah, I'll do better next time. Like coaching yourself through. Right. Instead of letting it take you out.
Well, and what it becomes is it's like, oh, I just learned something here.
Right.
You know, like I made a mistake, but I learned something.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, because I'm not, you know, drinking and I've got the 12 steps in my life, I actually know now how I made the mistake and why I made the mistake.
Yeah.
You know, like in my active addiction, I made mistakes all the time and I didn't even know what they were.
Right.
You know, like, you know.
Right. Because that unawareness.
Yeah. So it's my wife is like, I can't believe you did this, that, or the other. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't even know what I'm sorry for because I don't even know what I did. Like that's how, you know, that's how delusional my brain was. Is like I'm doing all these things wrong, but I don't know what they are. But now, like that's one of the biggest gifts of recovery is the awareness to know when you're acting in your character defects, and then to have the knowledge of, you know, the knowledge of acknowledging them. And then because we learn things, it's like, oh, I can apply the spiritual principles to this instead. right? Like, maybe in your active addiction, you get really jealous over, people about what they have and maybe their money or whatever it might be. And in recovery now, like I've been able to switch from jealousy to inspiration. It's like, instead of being angry that someone has money and I don't, it's like, hey, how did you make that money?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I want to do what you did. Like,
Yeah.
how did you meet this person? How did you get this job? So instead of just being angry about the fact that they have it and thinking that, they don't deserve it, it's like, you know what? I can do it too. And that's a spiritual principle. That's the way the neural pathways switch, right?
Right. And that's beautiful because like in earlier recovery, you're kind of like reactive. The old version is still going to fight a bit with that new version.
Yeah.
So it's those reactions are a huge part of that early recovery, but it's like telling you something. So like you'll name it as jealousy, but then there's that opportunity to grow in recovery and have that awareness to be like, well, I could look at it this way. They obviously have something that I want.
Yeah.
It's not like they're bad and doing that against me and taking from me. It's just like, how do I get what they have?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll ask them about it.
Well, and that's really the message in, AA, NA, whatever.
AA, all
the A's. Yeah. CA, just pretty much the alphabet with an A at the end. AA, BA, CA.
MA.
Yeah. So, but that's the essence of it, right? Is like, going into that room, seeing people that have recovery and realizing like, holy crow, they're like enjoying their lives and they're here sharing a positive message. And it's like, yeah, I want what that person has, I don't want what I had, I wasn't living life, and to see someone in a room that, maybe they share about whatever they're sharing about and you relate to it. And it's like, oh, maybe that person would be a good sponsor for me because, they're delivering this message that I want to be able to deliver and that I want in my life,
Right. Or even like maybe they have the same problem that day and you have the same problem too. And you were like, oh my God, higher power. Like that is the message I needed for my issue.
Yeah.
Whether I get something out of that or maybe I talk to that person about it. Right. Like all those kind of things help with recovery and growing.
And that's, one of the things that I look at now is having some time under my belt is when I'm in a meeting, I might not be getting much out of it. It's just for whatever reason, but I know someone in that room is getting something out of it, So whenever I'm at a meeting and, nothing hits me hard and I just kind of whatever, it's like, I know the guy next to me or the girl next to me maybe heard something that changed her life. So just knowing that makes that a great meeting, no matter what. Right. So, that's one of the things though, like in an active addiction, I didn't care if something changed someone's life for the good. Like just never even occurred to me. Those thoughts were just weren't there. But now, you can really feel it in your heart, when you can see someone changing and, we can't keep this unless we give it away. And,
I believe that
one alcoholic helping another or one addict helping another is, it's really, at least for me, and I know for you, it's the only thing that's worked for,
Yeah, true that. Because I tried all the other ways before I even got to a room.
Yeah.
Or a center.
I tried not drinking. That's one of the things I tried.
Yeah.
That didn't work.
Yeah. I could not drink for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
I couldn't string a day together though at the very end.
But that's just because you hadn't been paid yet. You're waiting for once you get your check, you're like, oh my God, I got First 4 hours to go.
Oh, it got so bad. Yeah.
But because we've gone through this life together, we can kind of laugh about those things.
I don't feel bad about it. I was a sick person.
Yeah. And so was I, but I like to think that now, like, myself, and I know you are doing the right, excuse me, doing the right things. Right. And, all those things I did and, as bad as my life was, the trauma, whatever, you know, I feel that I had to go through that stuff to know how good life could be.
True. I
And
agree.
I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. And if I had the choice, I probably would, but I wouldn't do those things. But, you know, trauma, it's not our fault, but our recovery is our responsibility.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a victim the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be blaming others. I don't want that to be my identity.
Yeah, it's hard to get out of victim mode, right?
Yeah.
Because you're trying to protect something.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're in the freeze, flight, fawn,
Mm-hmm.
all those, right, for a long time. I wanted to go back to when you were talking about awareness,
Yep.
because awareness is the first like sign of growth, or like you need that to have the change, right? And when you're not aware, like when you're back in your active addiction and you're not aware, that's where I find that selfishness comes in, where
Mm-hmm.
because you're so unaware, it's not everyone else's responsibility to operate around you.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get into recovery, you start owning that awareness and you start being aware of yourself so that other people don't have to do that work to be around you. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, I did that, or I'm sorry about that, or
Yeah.
I won't do that again. Like in everything, I find a lot in this program, like what I do is that as much as I can own that's mine is mine, and it's not on anyone else.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate and welcome if there's criticism, or if I've done something, I want people to be able to approach me about that. I don't want to hurt anyone. But my job is to be in control of myself.
Yeah, of course. Like, we have a responsibility to ourselves, and once we have that figured out, we're gonna a responsibility to, whether it's our kids, our job, or we can't handle those responsibilities if we don't know how to responsibly handle ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing with with recovery, is like, if I put other people or things in front of my recovery, I'm going to lose them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to lose everything I put in front of my recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So part of my recovery is, loving myself, being responsible. And, I pray every day to my higher power, like, hey, thanks for giving me the strength, the tools, and the courage to take on, accept, and handle these situations and responsibilities in life. Because I couldn't do that in active addiction.
No.
Like, the littlest thing was like, oh, I'm going to drink about it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my garage door doesn't work. I'm going to drink about it.
Right. Is this the solution for everything, no matter how small?
Meanwhile, the solution was actually just call a garage door company. They'll come out and fix it, and I'll have to spend some money, and money that I would have if I wasn't drinking, So
everything's so much harder in active addiction,
Oh.
But you think, it's a weird trick.
Tying your shoelaces in the morning is like absolute.
I hate these.
Yeah.
Oh, these stupid shoes. Like, it's everything else's fault.
Well, the shoelaces, it's their fault, right?
Yeah.
Like, so then you burn your shoelaces because you're mad at them. Well, then you don't have shoelaces.
Yeah. So you've created another problem for yourself, right? Problems of our own making.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So like going back to like spreading the message too, like you were a counselor at a treatment center, and like you were talking to me about like I statements. Like I statements are big in recovery, like because you're like practicing making it about like what's going on with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only talk for me. I can't talk for you, we, everyone, and everything, right? Because it can be outside focus. So it's really practicing to talk about myself. And then when it comes to like talking to people, because you were a counselor, so you talk to newer people, and do you want to just touch on that, like that balance of like wanting to help someone but not putting all your beliefs on, and how that dance goes?
Yep. So when someone's new to recovery, they've just put the drugs down, they've just put the bottle down. They're probably going through withdrawal, which is, horrible. um, they're not going to be in the greatest mood, to say the
No.
least, and it's scary, right? So as a counselor, the main number one job right off the hop is just to make them feel comfortable, and let them know that I've been there too,
Right.
So
Right.
I'm not,
Yeah.
I can't really tell people what to do, but I can tell them, what I did, what worked for me. And, the first couple days, it's going to be like, that's critical because some people, they just can't handle it and they run. But the ones that, do feel comfortable, realize they're in a good place, better than where they were. And if they can get some kind of inspiration from, the support workers or one of the counselors, and you keep them there, then, the seed starts to grow.
Right.
So it's really
I like
important
that.
to plant
You,
that seed right off the hop, right?
right.
That, oh, this was a good idea that I came here,
Yeah. Yeah.
So if someone comes in and, I get it, especially if you're going through withdrawal, you're sick, you don't want to be there. And
It's painful.
it is. So the last thing I'm going to do is start yelling and screaming at you to do this,
Yeah.
that, and the
Climbing
other,
down your
because
throat.
like,
Right.
like no one's gonna,
Yeah. You should have got here sooner.
yeah.
No one's going to say anything like that.
Instead of saying you should have got here sooner, it's like, hey, I'm glad you finally
Yeah.
came.
We're glad good
Yeah.
for you for
Yeah.
being here,
Well,
staying today,
it's one of the scariest things to do in your life if you're in addiction, is to actually go somewhere and admit you have a problem
Yeah.
and accept help. Like, I think that's one of the most courageous things that a person can do, is to actually admit that what they're doing in life isn't,
It's hurting them
and
and
others,
everyone
yeah.
else, right?
And because it is a family disease,
Yeah.
it harms everyone in the family and friends, and there's just this avalanche effect where it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it spreads to other people, and maybe you're making your parents so upset that they start drinking more, like
right. The
it's,
ripple effect
yeah.
of the disease, and then there's the ripple effect of the recovery.
Yeah. So when they come in, it's all about, just kind of being gentle, I think, to a certain realistic point. And then,
Can I just add to that?
yeah.
What I like that you brought up is like they come in and I can I agree with this too. Like it's like you had the environment. Like I felt like that too. I came in, no one asked of anything of me, and I didn't feel like I had to do anything. I just had to be there, and that's all I could do was the bare minimum.
Yeah.
I couldn't even smile. I couldn't do anything. I was just so and but that environment of just like the safety, the eat whatever you want, sleep however you like, go for a nap, like you come down to the rooms when you're ready. And I like that, it's like that environment was there. And then, when you said like, then your guys' main your priority was just to plant a small seed and that comfort. And then,
Well, it's already overwhelming. And if someone's in your face telling you and all these things, it's like going to get even, it's going to be even more overwhelming. And then that's
you can't
when,
digest much.
no. So, you can't be laying around in bed for a week.
No.
It's like,
You're here for a reason.
Yeah. We have to start working.
Time is money.
Yeah. But yeah, once that, and I'm talking about my own experience too, is once I realized like, oh, like the things I've done and that I was doing, and this is just like normal to these people. Like if I told some of these stories to, people that aren't addicts and alcoholics, they would be like probably terrified. And meanwhile, I'm saying this in front of, a whole group of, people in recovery, and they're just laughing. It's like unbelievable, but it's so
good to talk about it.
I know,
right? With the like-minded people in the rooms, like it just feels good to let it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's it's just, yeah, like if you don't talk about it and you don't listen to what other people say, you'll never grow and you'll never get
Mm-hmm.
out of it. And, the disease wants to get you alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you're out partying anymore at the tail end of the disease. It's like you're just sitting in your basement alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the disease of addiction wants. It wants to get you alone so that the only other person you're talking to is the disease. And it's all going on inside your mind. And, you start to, when you get into recovery initially, you start to learn how to ignore your
First thought.
yeah, and you ignore, basically you're ignoring your brain and you're starting to like think with your heart, right? And your
I like
gut.
that.
Because all the decisions I made involving drugs and alcohol were based on whatever this thing was that was telling me things here.
Right.
But I always knew what I was doing was wrong.
So there's a confliction happening, right?
Yeah. And my heart, where I feel like my higher power, tells me things, and my gut,
Mm-hmm.
um, was always being overpowered by the devil of addiction. And, the farthest distance you have to go in recovery is from here to here,
Yeah. Amen to that. That's
and
true.
because this thing was never wrong. It always told me
Yeah.
the truth. And I mean,
And now this leads the way when
yeah,
you get more into recovery and stuff.
and this thing's still there.
Yeah.
It's like, it'll tell me here and there, like, hey, do this. But then thankfully I know how to listen to my heart, and it's like, no, scram.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That thought's not healthy for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what was I gonna say? I forget. I had something I was gonna say there, but yeah, like a lot of people come and go in treatment. Like some people they stay and some people they don't. And addiction is so hard. Like most people don't get through, right? Like
The statistics aren't good.
yeah.
For someone to come in and actually, to come into treatment and leave and just retain the information and put it into practice.
Yeah.
Because going to treatment is just the initial thing, right? Like
Yeah.
the hard part is going out and doing it. And,
Right.
you're in there and you're learning. And
Right.
if you go out, you can't, and you relapse, you can't blame the treatment center,
Right.
because, hopefully
Because
at
that's just the
least,
beginning.
yeah. And hopefully, it was a good treatment center where they did teach you all the tools. And, when I'm praying, when I was in my active alcoholism, it was like I'm praying to God to help me, like, get sober.
Mm-hmm.
And now, after going to treatment, when I had that moment of clarity where I knew I needed help, I came out of treatment saying, "Hey, God, thanks for giving me the tools to do it."
Mm-hmm.
And thanks for introducing me to these people. And, thanks for,
Right. Living in gratitude.
yeah. And that's
Right.
what's huge, right? Like, my air conditioning stopped working the other day and it's hot in
Oh
my
my
place.
gosh.
And we're going through a heat wave here.
Oh yeah.
But
I've got 3 running right now.
yeah, but like, I'm like, okay, you know what? This is okay.
Yeah.
I have a place to live.
Yeah.
I can get some fans. I'll get it fixed.
Living in the solution.
Yeah. Like I could live in the problem but like, I don't have to,
It's your choice. Yeah.
I don't want to,
Yeah. Yeah.
There was a comfort in active alcoholism
Right.
where it was like comfortable being in the problem.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because, you wanted other people to fix it. And
oh, this building sucks. Like,
yeah, like
you can just totally go. It's easier to go down that road, I think, too.
Yeah.
Than to have the effort to like, well, what could I do? What am I grateful for? You know what I mean? It takes that effort, but you like working out. Like you build that muscle.
Yep.
So, and over time, that muscle starts giving back, starts working for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's way easier to be in gratitude when you're often in gratitude. I find. Yeah.
Well, I was planning a trip with the kids. And, but then I was kind of like, I just can't really afford it. Like, I don't want to go into the credit card debt any more than I am. And you know what? There's lots of things I can do with, these 2 weeks off with the kids, like around town. And what do you know? My air conditioner blows up. So that money that I would have had on the trip, like, it would have been great. I come home and my air conditioning's not working. Now I can get it fixed,
Oh yeah.
So
right,
it's
right.
like something told me don't go on that trip because you're not going to have money for something else. And
Right, and it would have been worse. Yeah, you would. Yeah,
because
yeah.
coming home, I would have just come home to this, sauna and not having.
And then you had that gnawing feeling of like, I shouldn't have really went. I don't know if this is the right time financially, right? And yeah, those are tough decisions in recovery.
Yeah, but I made the right one.
Yeah, you made the right one.
And in active addiction, I would have been like, I'm going on this vacation and I'm going drinking.
Right.
Like, I'm going to sit on the beach and
do what I want.
Yeah. And when I get home, I'm not going to remember a single thing.
Yeah. What was the point of going on?
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
I have a million stories like that. Right. Another thing, like, you go to the treatment center if you get that opportunity, and it's a starting point. And I remember someone saying to me when I was there, like, this is just the easy part, like just removing the substance.
Yeah.
And I was shocked. I was like, thanks for the bad news. Like, screw you. I was all like butthurt about it. But then, and then it was like to get out is like a really fresh time, right? You're so like, everything's been removed. You got to like learn this program. You're not going to know it right away.
Yeah.
But it takes all the parts, like, getting right into those meetings right away, getting a sponsor right away. If you can, get a temporary sponsor, right? Like, and doing all those things will help keep you on that path.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You got to look at your life, and if something's troubling you, or, it's like, I got to tell myself, like, hey, am I doing the things right now to,
you do a check-in?
Yeah. And then I'll say, oh, well, no, I'm not doing the things. Like, I need to go to a meeting, or I need to help someone today, or, and then there's days where it's like, I just need some time for myself too, right? Some self-care. So finding that balance, and that's where that awareness that we learn is so key. And then just, having a sponsor that you can call up and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. And usually they're going to be like, okay, well, is it because you're not doing this? And you're like, well, yeah, probably. They know right away,
Right.
Like,
they know exactly what to say.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't like hearing it.
You know what? It's almost like you call anyway to be like, to hear the thing that you already know, but just to be like, confirm.
Yeah, that's totally it. Yeah.
And then it's like, that someone's in it with you.
Yeah.
Right. And then this gives you that bit more courage that maybe you needed to make the decision you already knew that you needed to make.
Well,
right. And have that support.
And I think if it's like, maybe if I'm calling my sponsor about a conflict I'm having with another person, they're a third party to the situation. And so, my sponsor, they can ask me questions like, okay, well, this person, did you think about this? Or are they doing this? Or, have you judged them without knowing the truth? Like, contempt prior to investigation. And, usually I'm like, oh, and sometimes, or if not most of the time, it's like, oh, this whole situation is actually on me, Right.
The whole mirror is turned around, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the thing, like, as an alcoholic, and most alcoholics by nature, we don't like being told what to do. We like to break the rules. Know what to do. We think we already know what to do. Exactly. But, so that's why when, people before treatment, people that had never gone through it, when they were telling me like, do this, do that. And, my initial reaction is to say like, no, get away from me. I'm not listening to you. But in treatment, when someone told me what worked for them, then it was like, oh,
yeah, like
a whole different story. Yeah.
Yeah. That's such a thing to practice. Like, even when you're sharing in a room, it's just like to really go with those I statements and to share your story.
Yeah.
Share my story. And it makes it not judgmental to other people. It just gives them the chance that if they want to take something from that, they can.
Yep.
Right.
And, being a counselor in treatment, after that initial, stage where you first get in there, that you and I both went through, being able to then talk to the person and start to find out, okay, what was life like before you came here? Like what led to this moment? You start to sort of get a little bit of their story, and then, more often than not, you can relate to so much of it. And that's when you can start, diving into, getting into the solution, and that's the key, right? When people just stay stuck in the problem, it's, you could say the last 3 months of my life before I came here were, this person did this to me, that person did that to me. But at the end of the day, take that 3 months and use that as a tool to say, I never want to go back there.
Like aware enough not to repeat it.
Yeah.
Right.
And when someone else can like hear that story of like the last 3 months or whatever it is, and actually acknowledge that, oh yeah, like I know what it's like, or I've been there, or, I never was there, but I know lots of people that have, whatever the case. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, so the problem was the problem. And now this person is getting me, like, they want me to get into the solution. Like, how is that not a good thing? Right. So, but, step one is admitting, you can't, control your alcohol, and that your life's unmanageable. And so if you don't do that, then, you're not ready. And
step one's important.
Step one is the most important step. I mean, none of the other steps work unless you got step one. It's the foundation, right? You've got the concrete in there,
it's the foundation.
Like, have you ever tried to build a roof before you had walls?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of hard. Like, I'm not a carpenter, but
what would you call that?
Yeah. It's like, you got to have
roof.
Yeah. Who wants to buy this roof? It's on the real estate market here. But like, so yeah, the
roof only.
And the foundation is key. And that's where you need to do it with other people. Like I needed to do it with other people, like
to do your step one.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at a house being built, going back to that, it's like, it's not one guy, doing all the concrete and, driving the truck and, mixing it up. And like, there's a team, and if you're brand new to it, they're going to show you how to do it. And if you listen, you're going to get good at it. And, so it's a we program. It's not an I program.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. And so, the step one is we admitted that we were powerless, and we, realized our lives were unmanageable. And it just feels great to have someone that cares enough to like help you build that foundation. Right.
Yeah. And so many people do care in 12-step programs, like, it's good to have that. And like you get in the rooms, and like you were talking about listening a lot, and like, and it's both. It's just like talking about your vulnerabilities with people, and then really getting good at the listening. Like there's both of that.
Well, in active addiction, we didn't listen very well.
No.
It's
more important, I think, almost.
Yeah, like we heard a lot of things. Like I could hear the traffic, behind my patio. Yeah, we heard what we wanted to hear.
Yeah.
But now it's like I've learned, and that the best way to learn things in life and to grow is like I listen to learn, not to respond.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in
totally
when I was drinking alcohol, you wouldn't even be finished your sentence and I was already responding. I was already thinking of what I was going to say before you said what you were going to say. And now just once again, the awareness to be able to say, oh,
well,
I'm going to listen to this person and maybe I'll learn something.
Mm-hmm. Like, and to like listen, like there was like a pause you did there. It's like it's almost like a person has to develop the capacity to be able to pause and listen. And when you're early, or inactive, it's just so like I wanna.
Mm-hmm.
And then in recovery, if you continue with consistency, it's like I will share and talk when the floor is clear or
Mm-hmm.
when it's my turn. There's so much more like submission and waiting, because you develop that capacity to be like, you start to understand almost like that I want to hear, like there's so much to learn from everything. And when I listen more, I get that information, which feeds my soul.
Yeah. And,
right.
And, I think that, there's a humility to it as well, because I can listen to what someone says and realize that, oh, their way is actually better than mine.
Right.
And, to be humble is to have a modest opinion of oneself and to, be able to admit mistakes and to be able to say like, oh, this person has a better idea. When I was in active,
to have space for that,
when I was in active addiction, it's like I knew everything. I know this, I know that. So therefore, anything anyone ever said, I couldn't learn. You couldn't teach me anything. So I never could grow as a person, right? Because I knew everything. I was the best at being humble. Like.
Just ask me.
Yeah, like like
I'll show you how humble I am.
Yeah. But you know what? Like humility and we all have egos and they all flare up from time to time.
Yeah, it's never gone.
No, it's always a work in progress.
Yeah.
But actually just listening to someone and being humble enough to know when you're wrong, and it's actually like it's calming. It really is like this feeling of serenity, because
right. Yeah.
This job of knowing everything doesn't pay very well. And it's exhausting.
Right.
It's a full-time job.
Yeah. Exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your nervous system isn't going like, I need this from you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're more of like calmer and like letting things come in. Right.
And knowing, because that's another thing we talked about, the awareness. It's like now when people are talking to me, I know what I should listen to and what I shouldn't, because there's a lot of people in life that are going to try and steer you wrong, and a lot of those people were the only people we hung out with when we were doing our drinking. So just having the awareness to be around the right people that will help us grow is a huge thing.
Yeah, I agree. Like my relationships have really changed a lot over the last 5 years, but I find it helps my health being around healthier people.
Oh yeah.
It made a huge difference, and I struggled with that for a while. And but yeah, it does. It helps, like the environment, the consistency of the program, the learning about yourself, the being around healthy people. Like it's not just one thing in recovery, it's a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
And so I think we're getting close to the end here for this episode. Any final last words, or?
I mean, I don't know. I would just say to anyone that's struggling, like, there's never really been a worse time on this planet we live on for addiction. There's some seriously bad drugs out there. But that being said, there's also never been a better time to be in recovery. Use the tools that are available. Back in the day, there was no podcasts that you could, throw on. It's very important to get to meetings in person, but if you can't, go on Zoom. You
keep feeding that recovery.
Yeah, join a meeting in Australia. Like, you can go to anywhere in the world, right?
Right. There's so much soon.
There's so much on that. And then just like, like I mentioned, podcasts, like your podcast, like this is something that I would put on. Let's say I'm doing a road trip somewhere.
Yeah.
Throw it on my cell phone, put on the Bluetooth, and listen to people talk about recovery.
Yeah.
You only need 2 people to have a meeting.
Right.
So also, if you can't get to a meeting, but your buddy, down the road is, in recovery or wants to learn about it, then get together.
Recovery phone call or something.
Yeah. Of course, there's literature, and it's just, there's never been a better time to take advantage of what the world has to offer in recovery. And, we live on a floating rock, a giant floating rock in space. And, that in itself is just wild, and I've never been, high or as intoxicated to the point where I've, hallucinated anything crazier than that. And that's reality, right? So I get to live on this, beautiful rock in space, and, it's magical, and to be able to live in it and be present, and to, be able to do stuff like this with you, and, be a help, good dad, and, not a menace to society. It's just, it's so
There's
special.
less fires to put out too, right? Yep. When you start like living differently, and like recovery for me is like whatever it takes. Like, I made a really good step 1, and then like if I was like not okay emotionally at work or something, like I listened to, like in my early recovery, I listened to podcasts all day.
Yeah.
Whether it was like motivational or someone I liked, or just like I just fed my brain and my body and my like health and everything. I just worked against that addiction with everything I had for so long, and learning the balance. And if you can't like get to a meeting, my mind was always like, well, what's the other way, or what else do I do, or who do I talk to, or and there's been some times in my recovery too where my sponsor wasn't available, or there was nothing available, and I thought, maybe my higher power just wants me to practice my own thinking. Or make a decision like all by myself. And that wasn't all the time, but sometimes I was faced with that. And that really helped me also practice like developing my own self-trust of like, okay, I know everything to do. So what do I do? But, and just build up that strength and courage and do it. And I lived through that, even without someone holding my hand. Like,
when you are by yourself, it's like you actually, we've had the chance to learn to do the right thing when no one's looking.
Oh yeah.
Like if I'm chewing gum, if I'm chewing gum and I throw it in the, trash can on the street, but I miss and no one's saw me, like I could just leave it on the ground, but no, now I pick it up and I put it in the trash. Like,
good for you.
It's such a simple little thing, right?
Right. But you're behaving better. You're changing.
And
all the way around.
It's the little tiny things. Like, I would advise anyone watching this, if you want to develop those positive neural pathways, like try little things. Like if you're at the grocery store and you're going through the till and the cashier says like, hey, how you doing? Say good. But you could also say good.